Hello, friends. The following episode contains subject matter that some listeners may find triggering around domestic violence and teenage substance abuse. If you or someone you love is in trouble or struggling, contact the kidshelpphone.ca or local helplines and services in your province or territory. Internationally, please contact your local helplines and crisis assistance centers. Welcome to Late in 88. I'm Bronwin Parks here with my co-host Elinor Svoboda. This season, we're exploring our graduation year in high school in 1998 and the intense challenges of growing up queer and gender non-conforming in conservative Calgary, Alberta. This episode, we bring back my gas bar buddy, musician, producer, and author Rae Spoon, who is a trailblazing Canadian trans icon. While both Rae and I may have been assigned country at birth, that is only the tip of the iceberg of this story. Yeehaw! Great to see you, Rae. Thanks for joining us here on Late in 88. It's so great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
I'm going to dive in because you and Bronwin have a context. So you know each other from back in the day, and I would love to hear about how you connected back then.
I met you because we worked at the same gas station. And it was my first job, I think, besides, babysitting 10 children when you're 11, including newborns, which is something else people did back then. And Bronwin was there. And actually, it was like, there was a lot of folks there. It was a very gay gas station, weirdly. It was about as gay as my wrestling team, girls wrestling team was. Like in the end, but there's a lot of out queers there at the time where it still wasn't like that common to have that many out people in a room.
That's really
to me
fascinating that it was in this gas station context.
That gas station was the end of the line of the C train. It was the hub.
Yes.
We got all the commuters, and it was a very, very busy gas bar for sure.
If I recall, you already knew how to drive when I met you, but I didn't learn until I was like 38.
Basically, as soon as I could get my license, I needed to get out of my house. So I had a car as soon as I could get one, or I borrowed my parents' car or whatever.
We have actually talked a lot about cars with people on this podcast.
Well, because it's like
unexpected hot top.
Well, not being able to drive in Calgary and being queer is really different than being in a metal shield. I notice even going there now.
Yeah.
If you're like inside a car, like really different things happen to you.
Metal shields. Good one.
It just changes your experience. It's a lot less safe feeling at all in some ways. Like you're out on display.
If I think about the amount of times that I even just when it gets cold, like at a bus stop, I have a few really like core memories of like really, really almost feeling like I was going to die. I got so cold at a bus stop, so there's legit, even like physical survival issues with taking transit.
That happened quite often though. That was like a weekly, it was a really bad thing that your legs are numb, and you're just, and it comes every hour, it's minus
legit.
20. Anyway. Yeah, no, I think that's a very core experience too, for sure. But I read books and I was like, I don't think it's like this everywhere. That was my I was like, it's not that bad everywhere else. I don't know.
I also remember going somewhere and like parking in the car, and not like a make out thing, but just like going somewhere, parking and just like smoking cigarettes and like having like the most in-depth conversations with people. Like, I remember having conversations with you, Rae, and just like we would talk about stuff because like I didn't have any gay people to talk to. So I remember when we connected.
I
know. And so like when we connected, I'm like, oh my God, I have a fucking gay friend. Because prior to that, it was just like that one other older gay lady at the gas bar. And I was pretty sure
she's nice enough, but we didn't have as much fun with her.
No, she was pretty serious, but she was like old school.
We were pretty bratty and she was older than us.
She was like old school. So she had seen some shit. So like,
yeah, totally not fair.
It was really cool to have somebody like my age to like be a bratty teenager with and connect to in that way. Because like, I'd always sort of like been in this liminal space of gender, but you were sort of like the first person I knew that sort of like took it even a step further. And I was like, oh, that's so fucking rad. I'm like, you can take it a step further.
Totally.
Oh, shit. And so like, it kind of blew my mind at the time. So all I wanted to do was like hang out with you because I thought you were like the coolest person on earth. And then
that's so weird because I didn't think you really liked me that much, but I didn't think a lot, like when you just get these perceptions, I think we think more about at that age what other people are thinking about us.
Right.
Sometimes then like, and you kind of get out of your head and eventually you're like, well, let's just talk and ask questions. And, like I moved beyond that. It was also like a very funny time where it was very intense because the stakes were very high. For youth, we shouldn't have been dealing with what we were dealing with. We were all coming from a lot of pressure, like pressurized situations.
Part of you may be thinking that like I didn't like you is that I was just like awkward as fuck because I thought you were so cool.
I'm actually curious, Rae, what your impressions of Bronwyn are. Could you describe what Bronwyn was like from your perspective when you met them?
If I was thinking about Bronwyn, the first thing I would think is country music. Like that was the first thing that hit me about you. You were like into it. Were you wearing like Lees or Wranglers? You might.
I just imagine you got like a truck. I was such a brand baby. It would have been Wranglers all day.
I don't know if it's like this for you with me, but like I feel like we're the same exact people. To you and I. Some people change a bit, but I know that I'm probably the same as I was when I was 15, basically.
I am basically the same person
or something. I don't know. Like,
I mean, so, I'm basically I wear
similar.
the same. I wear the same clothes. Like
totally.
I'm basically. We were basically self-actualized as teenagers.
Strong flavors. We were both strong flavors.
We really were. That. Like a very expensive scotch is the way I look at myself.
But you were really tough. And I remember the manager there actually told me that because she said girls aren't allowed to be supervisors. To me, she said you can't be a supervisor because girls can't close the gas bar because it might be violent and you have to be alone and stuff. But I was like, but Bronwyn closes the gas bar. I think you were closing it, weren't you? Like I'm being told I can never do it. I mean, that might just be a body core strength issue. I don't know. But yeah, it was very interesting at the time I was being told, and I wasn't identifying like using he, him pronouns at that point. Or they, them, which I use now. But yeah, I remember being like, but Bronwyn's closing this. So I think you just had some sort of gender thing going on. Yeah, you had like a pretty tough air about you, Ellie, Elinor, do you feel like you've changed a lot since you were a teenager or like?
Oh my God, you call me Ellie, so you do know me.
Yeah, I do. I recognize your name. Now I realize you're like Sophia's friend Ellie. So like, okay, now I remember. I'm like remembering.
Yep, it's coming back.
All coming. Yeah, it's all coming back.
But it is weird. Like people on the periphery is a weird thing. Like the last friend we just interviewed at Bronwin's, it was like half the interview. I was like, it was like this shimmering on the edges of my memory because it was like I was in classes with you and at parties, but like trying to actually get a crisp memory of that person. So I totally get it, and it's kind of fun actually. These peripheral people.
Yeah, that's really fun.
I have this memory of meeting you at Weed's Cafe. I think we were with Tegan actually. And then, of course, I remember you playing and opening for them or playing with them. I don't know if it was opening or playing with them. And
I think you played a few shows.
Yeah. And I was like, from the beginning, always there. I have very vivid memories of listening to you perform, and it was incredible. I mean, you have such a distinct voice, and you're a small person and you have this big voice. And I just remember always being like, wow. And not that you're like energy small. It's just like, anyways, you know how it goes.
Yeah, totally.
I'm physically small too. And I have big energy that comes out.
No, I'm really loud. It scares me. The sound I can make. I'm like, what is
it's so cool. It's so cool. Just to answer your question, there were so many broken parts of me that were all over the place because of trauma and self-esteem and all that stuff. And I think a lot of us had that now I just feel like a lot of those puzzle pieces are mended and I'm able to like traverse who I am in a smoother, more consistent way. The more I remember my teenagehood, I'm like, it actually feels more real or more raw back then than it does now. And I'm coming to appreciate that actually. So
for sure.
Yeah. But like, in terms of my, like, I was very far away from knowing and connecting with my sexuality at that point. I think all the signifiers for my gender journey were very much in place and playing out, but it's not like there was a lot of landing ground for that to go.
And you also need to see, it's like, as we're social, so we need to see examples, right? And that's something that thinking about elders or people who are around, there's definitely always been gender nonconforming people, queer people, trans people, but when I was coming out, I didn't know a 45-year-old trans person. So, and so I see like the value in that. And there's many now, different ages. It doesn't matter how long you've been out, also when you come out culture, I'm kind of like, come out, like when you started, I don't know. None of that matters, I think, especially if biphobia is kind of put it on the table to be like, whatever. I don't know.
Well, that's me.
And gender goes like this now.
That's right.
And gender moves, and as gender moves, it's like you might even have the same partner who thought they were straight, but now you're coming out as non-binary. So now this has to be a bit queer, so I think back then gender didn't have like that room. I come from a very, very unsafe home. It took me like until I was like 40 to kind of like get it all back together. In some ways I feel like there was so much pain to like actually try to navigate everything. But because I had such a broken family, I think I just had nothing to lose already at 15. What I had to lose was the people having control over me. So it was very, very scary. Easily could have ended up in conversion therapy, like if anyone had found out. But I also had a girlfriend in high school, and we were like, slowly coming out to our friend, then out in high school. We just thought we were adults kind of, and we never told them anything. Like we supported each other basically. Before, the like gender and sexuality alliances and all that.
It was almost
unofficial groups.
Yeah, it's kind of the code, right? I mean, I don't know if it's like that or now. It's code. You just don't.
Oh, totally.
You don't tell, and you just have each other's back.
It's interesting, and I think we're saying gay because like there was no gender, like, and I'm not gay. Like, if anything, I'm like bi, pan, or nobody. I don't really know.
Me too.
Yeah. But like, I always told you, my joke is I was like, I never figured out I was bi till I left Alberta. You just didn't see the dudes there. No. Anyway,
it freaks people out.
Like, I had no idea.
When I talk about how like, oh, my sexuality is fluid enough to include him, they're like, what? They're like, but I thought you were a lesbian. I'm like, well, like, whatever. Like, sexuality is, I so believe, like, sexuality is fluid. And like labels exist to like, what if it makes you feel good? Like, in some cases I'm a lesbian if that works. But like generally I describe myself as queer or pan or whatever, because like I am not going to limit myself to like a really fun experience with somebody that I am attracted to or whatever, because of some arbitrary label. I'm sorry, but no. Tell us about your high school, like your friend group and your social environment,
Because you went to our high school. Which high school were you at?
I was at Churchill. Our socializing did revolve around smoking and the smoke doors. There were 2 smoke doors, and one was like the jock, preppy smoke doors, and then there was like the goth, punk smoke doors. They would definitely be like, throwing rocks at us, but we would taunt them back by singing Fraggle Rock together, or just like the Spice Girls or something, and be dancing. So it was kind of like fun because not everyone was. It was like gays, goths. It's like the whole she's days gays thing now. It was like a group, and I call it like sort of an unofficial GSA. Or maybe the G stands for goth, but so like just like whoever would have like that kind of outsider time. I'm still friends with a lot of those people, so which is very nice because I'm not connected actually to many, only like one person in my blood family, and then like nobody from growing up at my church. If you really think about losing your entire blood family and your entire like everybody from an age to like that's wild. But I never felt super empty about that. I was out. I was in a like relationship for like a year and a half through high school. It was also quite scary. There was a lot of violence. I was being chased a lot. People were throwing bottles at me out of their cars. I think, Bronwin, you have a bit of this component to your personality where being like kind of offensive or funny is like part of your coping mechanism. Not to like boil it down, but I feel like they would be chasing me on my skateboard, like a bunch of boys in a car, dudes, like big dudes in a car. I got to my girlfriend's house, I opened the door and said, "Thanks for walking me home, boys." And then I slammed the door. So like I would add like some sort of like little hit back to these interactions, right? They were chasing me to like beat me up.
Because you were gay? Or just because
they didn't even know me. We were in an interracial lesbian couple, or queer couple, which is like another layer. And as we, Calgary is like anywhere else, there's a lot of complications between identity and all the things that happen. So I got to fall in love in high school though, which I think for everything else that ever happened to me, I think that's like really cool to get to actually like authentically fall in love with someone, with all the pressure on us. And it was very stressful. And, that's something that I feel like a lot of people, my peers, didn't have. I really, really value that and the people that I met.
Back in that time, being different in those ways, it was met with a lot of violence. And we are seeing a revisiting of that socially in a lot of ways. Rae was seeing it publicly. I was seeing it very privately. Like I was being met with a lot of like guys and guy friends, they knew I was gay. I would be threatened a lot with corrective rape in a sense.
Yeah.
In the sense that like I looked feminine enough, like I would pass in the street, so I would not necessarily be met with like Rae's violence from strangers. So I would just sort of like, I would be straight passing. I would just sort of look like Alberta. But I got cornered at like ranches, at 2 different ranches I worked at, where guys threatened me. Like they just implied that like I had not met the right guy, and they were most definitely going to be that guy in that moment. And then like also other guy friends who implied that I had not been with the right guy, and they were going to fix that for me. Right.
Which is terrifying. I'm
right.
so sorry
like,
you went through
yeah.
that.
And
That's
so it's
just,
like,
that's awful.
you're like 16 to 18 and you have these are like grown men, right? These aren't, all of these guys were over the age of 18 at the time.
Yeah.
Some over 20. Some of these are supposed to be like either my coworkers or one of them was supposed to be a friend.
Right. And it adds an element to that, like the gendered violence. But I wonder, like, Elinor, whether you're out or not, like the gendered violence at that time in Alberta, which still, it was like everyone, it's like you're getting hit from all these.
Well, I
it's
think,
like 3 people, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, no matter what you do. But I think the sexuality thing did add like a very different fervor to it.
For me in high school, I was basically asexual. Like at that point, I had abuse as a kid. By the time I hit my teenage years, I was so like disassociated, and not, just to me, it was all danger. It was like, there's nothing safe about this. And then being attracted to, one best friend in particular, well, that didn't feel safe either. Like none of it felt safe.
Yeah,
and
totally.
So for me, I have a lot of grief around, when you all, like, even when you just shared, Rae, I think it's so beautiful what you said about how lucky you were to fall in love and have that high school experience, like in high school, right? And and that was what I was so guarded. All of my guarding and all of my fear kept me from the exploratory. It kept me from the positive fun. There was no sexual fun for me. Like there was,
totally.
even Bronwin having fantasies about all sorts of people, including teachers. There was none of that happening in my body because it was all very guarded. It was like, I have to survive. I was still in survival mode.
When did you sort of begin to embrace your queer and trans identity? Like, was there sort of like a triggering moment? Was it sort of like evolving?
I started coming out to friends when I was 15, maybe. And that was really, really scary. Like, I remember, and it wasn't to like date any of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was more like, no, don't worry. I'm not like, so, but that happened. I had bad experiences with someone who had been my best friend, who had to then go around the whole school to tell everyone they're not gay. I came out more broadly when I was dating. So like, we were kind of all friends, and we told people we were dating. So that would be like 1997. And then 1998. Yeah. So I would have met you, Bronwin, right around then. I moved to Vancouver when I was 19. It's 25 years now that I came out as trans. So my music career, I was always out as queer, at least I was queer, and then I was like trans, like quite at a time when people did not. Same thing. It was almost like a do-over, but worse than, because people knew what gay was. So many, many years of just explaining over and over and over. Yeah, interesting. And at that point, I only met trans men and trans women, and I only knew maybe 1 or 2 trans people. But as soon as I met someone, I was like, oh, yeah. And changed my pronouns to he, him, but I didn't know there was like a non-binary option, right? And then as I discovered that over the years, I was like, oh, I just didn't feel like I wanted to deal with that in the media. So for many years, I did kind of like live using they, them pronouns before I bothered coming out. It was like washy for 5 years or so. So I came out using as non-binary in like 2012 because I was like, oh, and I was living in Montreal at the time, and I saw a functional system of people who like used it, and it seemed like a pronoun that people could like kind of get. And now I'm just like retired from everything, gender, sexuality. I don't know what's happening. I just want to make records. I just say, well, that being said though, I had a hospitalization. I was diagnosed with like a more gendered area cancer. So I had cervical cancer in 2020, and I ended up sometimes in a hospital institutionalized for like a year and 2 months straight from complications. So it was like a 4 or 5 year journey. And what happened is my trauma actually doubled down. Like it was like a healing thing, because I had to revisit a lot of things, but I've had so much trauma. I was like, lots of medical torture, lots of medical assault, and very bad to be stuck somewhere on the cost of my life and not able to leave. On top of that, human rights violations for being like, nobody knew what a trans person was. They were refusing to use my pronoun, putting me in a ward that was supposed to be for women. Just like wild, and like dealing with all that and almost dying over and over, going to ICU. So I think at this point, I don't know if I'm in a phase now after where I am in the like kind of like shell shocky thing where I'm like, and I don't know how. I think I have complicated health now. I don't have cancer anymore, but there's only so many rounds of that a person can do with your organs and stuff. So I'm kind of like, I don't know how long I'm going to be around. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep things really chill. I just want to have a nice time with my friends. I just want it to be calm,
Thank you for sharing so openly. And I'm sorry that you went through that. I mean, I can imagine it sounds so deeply rattling. It makes sense that you've landed where you are. And it sounds like
for sure
you've just been fighting. There's so much fighting to it all. I can see where you're like, okay, warrior's tired. Also so valid as like a frontline person who's being honest out there in a cruel world, and
yeah, for sure.
So just, really want to honor what you've been through and respect where you've landed. When you came out as trans, like what were the resources at the time? Were there, like you said, you knew a few people in Vancouver, but was there any other resources available?
Flash a little bit back to 1998 and with my girlfriend in high school, and I had like dial-up internet in the basement. And I remember like us trying to search if there was anywhere, if we got kicked out of our houses, if we could go anywhere in Calgary, like search, it wouldn't have been Google, but like anywhere in Vancouver, we couldn't find there was nothing. Like we searched for how we could kind of search through and be like, what would we do? So there was like nothing, wow. Nowhere, no youth groups, no shelters, not that they're great now, but there was like, it was actually just like, imagine you went on Google and nothing came up. I think when I came out as trans, there was not a lot of resources. Of course, there's been trans people forever and trans activists, and trans people have been entwined with the equality movement and actually leading the equality movement, especially like BIPOC folks. That's why we're even out at all now. It's like folks, that's like the grassroots, and that's like where all these movements have started from and are carried through. So like to acknowledge that, at the time, I guess it was very binary. I guess at first there was nothing and there was nobody around, and I was in Vancouver and people were lesbians. And so I was like, I guess I'm not a lesbian anymore. And I was getting a lot of like, what about your womanly body? It was a lot of like peer pressure from queer community or lesbian community, So I was like, I guess I'm a man now. And I had only dated women. So I was like, well, I guess I'm straight. So I just left. I went to Nanaimo and I hung out with these guys who were in jazz school. And I would just hang out with them. They would go to jazz school and they would teach me like jazz, like the interval, theory. When they would come home, I would sing it was a 50s and 60s cover band called Braille Cream in Nanaimo at the Queen's Hotel. And I wore a sailor suit with a sailor hat. And I remember being on stage and announcing to the bar, don't be alarmed if you see me in either Washroom, which was like certainly full of probably many Hells Angels. But anyway, I think I went on my journey. Once it started getting going with the resources, everybody really, it was still very binary, obviously. And then, there's the violence of what was expected of people to even be able to access things. So, you have to do the lived year of experience. So they're like, we're not going to give you any body modifications, hormones. You have to wear this dress-free or go to your work, go through your normal life, come out to everybody. You have to act masculine. You can't be gay. You were not allowed to be gay. You had to be straight to access hormones. You had to do it in a certain order. So like if I'd wanted top surgery, then even if I wanted to pay for it, I probably couldn't have got it because over those next 10 years, because you had to take testosterone and then you could have top surgery. There was no way around it. And I was at the time delaying it or like not so sure I wanted to do that because I was singing and then I was playing, the folk festival in Vancouver by the time I was 20. So it was not necessarily my identity, but it was like what I really loved. And at the time you can't get a job and nobody would ever call you a pronoun. So it's kind of the only job I could even do. So I didn't want to mess with my voice. And at least when I was on tour, I could just leave. I'd be like, this town sucks. And I'd peel off to the next. It would happen. The same thing would happen every day. But at least I got to like get on the Greyhound, I don't know, for like 8 hours to the next place. But I had that purpose. And I think that that's like something really cool. But I didn't take hormones. So I was, there was a myth back then that if you take hormones and you transition in any way, it's going to make you not be able to be a singer or a professional singer that's gonna like rob you of your tone. And I don't think I think it changes your tone, but it changes different for everyone. So that's not the truth. I didn't have top surgery. Thought I didn't care that much, but I'm like, you've been binding for like 18 years, you know? So like when I had it, I was like, I read that book, Nevada, I think it was Imogen Binion, where she's like wondering about, and I was like, what if I was just like in a Star Trek transporter? Like, and there was an accident, like, what would I want it to like spit me out as, you know? And I was like, I just want top surgery. I'd like, it was kind of like came to that, but that was 2019 and I came out in 2001. So,
wow.
You know, and then the hormone thing now is very funny because when I was doing my cancer treatments, I'm taking testosterone. Oncologists were like, you can't do it. You can't do it. They're trying to stop me. They're calling my family doctor, trying to stop anyone from prescribing it. But then I got it through a really great person he was a doctor and he'd done research on it. That it was never, like HRT never caused any complications in any case you could find in trans person getting cancer treatment. It was cis men taking HRT. It was like cis people taking HRT. So anyway, so I had to like bring these doctors and like, my point is I'm just on a low dose of testosterone now, but like you probably would be like, I can't tell. So I can still sing. There's lots of stuff going on. Basically, it's a choose your own adventure, but like a lot of people are trying to block all of us.
That's so fascinating. I didn't know that. Back in the day, you're talking about that there was these forced steps that were very much in the binary and you have to do these steps. And so that was the medical system who was like...
It was a medical system, psychiatry system. And also it may not even be funded. You'd have to do the 4 steps to get the letter to pay 10, whatever it was at that time, yourself. And then like, I know it's not funded everywhere, but it's like a very different, and they're trying to defund it. So I think it's very dangerous to do that for youth who maybe came of age when there was already like gender on the Charter of Human Rights in Canada, and then feel like things are getting taken away. Yes, they are being taken away, but we didn't have them for very long. So it's just like to see people, we've just been making our own systems. People always make their own systems and support each other.
Where I'm at in my life is like, because we didn't have these systems when we were younger, I want to be as visible as possible for that next generation. I want to be the first non-binary person in this neighborhood that my neighbors have to deal with. I want them to have to learn pronouns for the next non-binary person that they run across. Like, I'm totally happy to like be there because like we didn't have that. So, and it wasn't necessarily any fault of the previous generation either. Like, they had so few rights that that we benefit from today. We benefit from their fight. So I am going to use the rights that they fought for to then help the next generation. I was very reckless for many years, and I honestly didn't even think I was going to make it to this age.
Yeah.
I feel like the rest of my life is now a gift, so I feel like I should give some of it back.
If you from 1998 could see this conversation happening between the three of us, like this timeline is like a million times better I could have ever dreamed. Like, would you have imagined, either of you, where you are now?
I feel very blessed and I feel very excited to be in this moment in time and have all my experiences behind me and be able to use them moving forward.
My like 18-year-old self would like be losing her mind right now. Like, if
I'm like, do we have to old pronoun ourselves, mate? Are we both gonna do it?
Throughout this podcast,
it has been a question.
I have been kind of old pronouning myself because
totally
like back
fine.
then I would say that I was like a she, her. Like I didn't really start questioning my gender identity until I was in like mid-20s, I would say. Like it's funny because I really questioned it when I was like young. Like when I was like 8, like super young. Right. And then it's like it got beat out of me and by society. And then in my mid-20s, it came back. But then because it was so binary, I'm like, well, I don't want to be a man. Like, I know I don't want to be a man. So I guess I'm a girl-ish. My 18-year-old, 17-year-old self would be losing her goddamn mind right now. Like, I think we've all been pretty, like, clear on where we want to go, right? Like, I remember, Rae, you handed me, like, your mixtape in the break room. I listened to it as soon as I got my smoke break. I went on my smoke break and I listened to it in my car, and I was like, holy shit, Rae's real deal.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, dude. I was like...
You didn't even get mad when I poured all that oil accidentally in something. I was also like, people would be like, a little boy broke my car. They'd come back and it was like me. I left the oil cap off. But it's really nice to talk to the two of you. I love talking about the inside of the thoughts with folks. And then when you're alone and you're going around in your bubble, you know you're not the only one experiencing these like very different realities that are flipping and like flying around all the time.
I really appreciate you giving us the time and sharing your story so candidly. That's incredible. Thanks for coming over and hanging out. Be sure to subscribe and get the next episode directly in your feed. Follow us on your favorite social platforms at late.in.88. We cannot wait to hear your angsty teenage stories. You can check out our website, latein88.com, for more resources on all the grungy topics we dig into this season. Late in 88 is created by Bronwin Parks and Elinor Svoboda. Edited by Elfire Media. Original music by Aaron Hutchinson. Mixed at Sound Lounge by T-Bone. Additional production by Women in Media Network. Artwork by Feisty Creative. We would like to acknowledge the generous support from Alberta Foundation for the Arts.